Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 688 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And the Rangers, just a couple of minutes ago, concluding a 6-4 home victory against the Anaheim Ducks. I kind of, going into this game in our most recent episode, framed this as the Rangers' first opportunity of the season to respond to a loss, and I think for the most part, they passed the test. Obviously, they won the game. It was not perfect. There were a couple things you could nitpick, and I think I'm actually going to start today's episode by doing that. Let's get the couple of negative things and not so great things out of the way first, and then we'll move on to the fun stuff, because obviously there was a lot of things that you can like about this game here tonight, namely the Rangers putting up 6 goals and just continuing to fire on all cylinders offensively. It's a game that, before I get into all that, it kind of reminded me, it almost felt like the Rangers tonight were playing a version of themselves from like 2 or 3 years ago. When you look at this Ducks team, it's a team that's, very young. They have some good, young, exciting players, a couple of veterans sprinkled in here and there, and they are starting to put the pieces together, but they are still in the middle of a rebuild, as the Rangers were 2 and 3 years ago. And, very similar to the Rangers from that time period, I thought the Ducks at times in this game just kind of shot themselves in the foot. The penalties that they didn't really need to take, as well as, just not always being sharp in general. There were a couple of lapses in this game, namely the end of the second period, which we will get to for sure, where the Ducks just weren't at their best. And that's kind of what happened to the Rangers a few years ago. There were games where, it felt like they played hard, they were in it, they did their thing, they were competitive, but there would just be, a bad penalty here, a rough 3 or 4 or 5 minute stretch there, and the next thing you know, you're losing the game. And it was kind of similar to that. As for the Rangers, it was kind of similar to the Minnesota game, which was the second game of the season. Rangers won that game 7-3, but similar to that game and this game is just the fact that the Rangers at times didn't really, step on the throat of the opposition. They kind of let them hang around a little bit, and on one hand, you have to credit both the Wild and the Ducks for fighting back, but there were just too many times in both of those games where it felt like the Rangers were so close to that knockout punch, so close to just going on to cruise to a win, and, they would just continually let them back into the game. In this game here tonight, the Rangers, they're up 2-0. They're absolutely cruising. They're skating their tails off in the first period. It looks like it's going to be a laugher, and the Rangers are just going to run away with it. And it's going to be one of those games where you don't really worry about anything. Next thing you know, Frank Vatrano scored because, of course, he did. Why wouldn't he? Between him and Strome, at least one of them was going to score in this game. But he scores, and then literally like a tenth of a second into the next shift, Hedl takes a penalty, and the Ducks go back on the power play. They don't score there, but eventually Zegras scores, ties the game at 2, and you're thinking, like, how did this even happen? Like, how did we get here where we're tied? Now, the good news, of course, is the Rangers ripped off 3 consecutive goals after that in the second period, and like I said, we're going to break down that big second period for the Rangers. Just wanted to get the not-so-great stuff out of the way here really quickly first. The other thing is that, Igor Shesterkin, I didn't really think that it was his best game. He only ends up stopping 18 of 22 shots, and, kind of the joke to make there as well, he wasn't under fire as much as he usually is, so he wasn't ready for it. But Igor wasn't at his best, but it's fine. It's no cause for concern. He's not a machine. You forget that sometimes. But the way I see it, over these past few years here, Igor Shesterkin has stolen enough games for the Rangers. He's picked them up enough times that I think it's really nice to see his teammates do the same for him. And yeah, he didn't have his A game, but he gets a 6-4 win, and obviously there's better days ahead for Igor Shesterkin. But, another prevailing thought from this game for me is that you look at the schedule and you see, okay, Rangers, who do we got next? Because, they lose that game to the Jets. Okay, who's up next? Oh, home against the Ducks. Okay, yeah, that should be a win. And it's no disrespect to the Ducks, but where both these teams are right now, the Rangers, again, coming off of an excellent season last year where they exceeded all expectations. You expect them to be a great team again this season. And you're going up against a team that's still putting the pieces together, still rebuilding. You've got home ice advantage, and you've got a fresh Igor Shesterkin in net, and you've got this Ranger offense that's firing on all cylinders. It's like, yeah, that should be a win. It's hard to envision the Rangers losing this game. And that's such a nice feeling to have. It's such a far cry from where we were as recently as just 2 years ago and certainly 3 years ago, where the Rangers go into these games and you just kind of hope that they win. Maybe if the puck bounces our way a couple times, we can upset whatever team we might be playing. But yeah, it's crazy how, the mindset for myself, as well as I'm sure for a lot of you, has changed, where you look at this matchup and the Rangers are going to win this game. I mean, there's no guarantees. And look, the Rangers play 82 games this season. It's not like they're going to go through all 82 of them without having, a single upset loss in there somewhere. But again, you look at the matchup here and you just figure the Rangers are going to win this game. And that's a great feeling to have. And once again, a very far cry from where we were just 2 years ago. In just a second, I'm going to talk about this New York Ranger power play, which has just been insane to start the season. It's really crazy. I mean, we talk about how the team in general from 2 years ago is so much better than it, is so much better now than it was then. The power play is one of the chief aspects of that entire, concept. Where this power play was as recently as 2 years ago to where they are now. We're going to get to that and break down the Rangers' big night in the power play. They went 3 for 4 on their opportunities. We'll do that in just a second. But first, I just got to let everybody know, today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't tried the new Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Covered in chocolate? That's right, Built has done it again. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, plus it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, Locked On 15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, and we just want to go ahead and thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And as I just mentioned, we're going to go ahead now and just talk about this Ranger power play. And I swear I'm not making this up. I wasn't able to live tweet the game tonight, but I was taking my notes and I'm looking at the Ranger first power play. And this is before they even scored, but I was just thinking to myself, like, man, this power play has been so good, so lethal, so dangerous. Even when they don't score, they're a constant threat to score. And I just had a feeling it was going to be a big night for the man advantage. And indeed it was, once again, going 3 for 4. And I wrote into my notes that, okay, we are going to talk about the power play tonight because they've just been absolutely sensational to start the season. And, I say 3 for 4 on the power play, and technically, yes, that is what they were. Even the one on which they did not score, the second power play unit stayed out there. It was the kid line, plus, let's say, Trouba was out there, and I'm pretty sure Zach Jones was the 5th guy. But they stayed out there, and they scored, not too long after the power play concluded. But, it's crazy because we've gone from, I swear, like 30 years of power plays that are average to below average in the league to, in the last 2 years, believing that this team is going to score every single time it has the man advantage. It's been quite the turnaround. And, I mean, honestly, there have been times in the past, guys, where, even during the Alain Vigneault era of the Rangers, obviously they had some good teams. They were competitive. They made it to the Eastern Conference Final or deeper 3 times in 4 years. So that was awesome. The power play was never really a strength. And there were times, the Rangers would be in one of these, dogfight 6 or 7 game playoff series, and a penalty would be called against the opposition. And I'd be thinking to myself, like, man, can we just decline this? Because 5v5, the Rangers would be playing very well in one of these playoff games, and then they get the power play opportunity, and they just can't do anything. And so all that momentum just kind of vanishes, and the power play would almost do more to hurt the Rangers than help them. Yeah, that's not the case anymore. The power play is absolutely fantastic. And, I figure, they scored 3 times on the man advantage. We might as well just go ahead here and talk about all of them, and I'll just kind of add my thoughts along the way here. But they score in the first period to take a game-long lead, make it 1-0, first goal of the game. You've got Mika stick handling, and he dishes in deep to Trocheck, and Trocheck is able to tip it in, and the Rangers go up 1-0. You had Panarin, who gained the line on this play. He was along the boards, passed it to Mika in the left circle. Mika, once again, with the stick handling, dishes to Trocheck, and Trocheck tips it in. And, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that Mika was going to look for his BFF, Chris Kreider, on this play. Kreider was in deep there, too, but instead he passes it beyond Kreider, gets it to Vincent Trocheck, and Trocheck with another goal, his second in the past 3 games, I want to say. I don't know without checking that, but Trocheck off to a nice start with the New York Rangers. And, man, there's so much to like about this power play. I mean, the puck movement is just incredible. The puck recovery has been incredible. Anytime that the Rangers lose control of the puck on the power play, there's been so many times already this year, and we're only 4 games into the season, but it looks like, the opposition, the penalty killers, they're going to get to the puck first, and they're going to be able to basically just throw it down the ice and, go off for a change or whatever they want to do. But instead, the Rangers find a way to recover the puck. They win a 50-50 puck. They dig it out of the corner, and then they get it back to, Adam Fox at the point, and now you're set up again. You're set up for another opportunity. And there's so much deception on the Ranger power play. There's so many times where, even watching this, it looks like they're going to pass a certain way, and then they pass back the other way. And by then, the penalty killers have already committed the other way, and you've got an open shot. Or, there's times where, it looks like, maybe somebody's going to shoot and instead they pass. There's so much deception and there's so much movement. All 5 guys are constantly moving all over the ice. A lot of quick passing. They can score on a one-timer. We saw that in this game. They can score on a tipping goal. We saw that in this game. And, I mean, everybody out there's a threat. It's the same 4 guys as last year, plus now Vincent Trocheck in Ryan Strome's old spot. And I am not exaggerating. I tweeted this out, a couple games ago. I really do believe when it's all said and done this year, and there's no guarantees, and there are 31 other teams in this league, the Rangers could end up with the absolute best power play in this league. They are just tremendous. And I wanted to go ahead, like I said, and just go ahead and take you guys through the other power play goals that were scored here. And you had, so I want to talk about how this one was set up. You had Panarin on a breakaway. He was once again stopped. That's becoming kind of the Achilles heel for Artemi Panarin, just not being able to finish those power play opportunities. But there was a left pad save. Panarin got like 3 chances after this. The offensive zone possession continued. Lafreniere had a good chance. Jacob Trouba had a booming shot from the blue line as well. It all leads to the Ducks having to take a penalty. And so the Rangers get on the power play. You've got an excellent keep-in by Adam Fox. That's another thing where the Rangers are really good on the power play, especially Adam Fox. There's times where it looks like the puck is going to get cleared down the ice, and Fox will block it. He'll reach up and glove it, whatever it might be. But he did a great job, keeping this puck alive here. He gets a pass over to Artemi Panarin. Panarin is in low, looking for a deflection to Kreider. There's a great chance there. Kreider had a golden opportunity. Fox, pass from the corner to Kreider not too long after this. Another great chance for Chris Kreider. And then the Rangers finally break through here. It took 1 minute and 40 seconds. The top power play unit was out there for all of that. But the Rangers finally make it 2-0. You've got Mika passing over to Artemi Panarin. Panarin stick handles a couple of times, dishes to Trocheck, who's along the goal line, and Trocheck across the crease to Mika. Mika rips it top shelf, and it's 2-0 Rangers. And Trocheck, like I said, fitting like a glove, playing the bumper role on this power play here. And, obviously a nice start for him. He gets a pass from Mika and scores on the first power play. Then he returns a favor and sets up Mika on the second power play. And 2-0 at that point. And then the third power play goal, you had Fox from the center of the ice, passing to his right to Panarin. Panarin on this play really sold that he was going to go toward the net and shoot it. And, again, this is where Panarin is just so valuable and so dangerous. You saw all 4 penalty killers, they all kind of moved toward Panarin. And everybody left Mika Zibanejad all by himself. And believe me, when the Rangers are on the power play, you do not want to let Mika Zibanejad by himself. Mika Zibanejad receives a pass from Artemi Panarin right after that. Panarin dishing across the ice back to Mika. Mika winds back and cranks a one-timer. He's going to hit that almost every single time. And that was in the third period and made the score 6-3 in favor of the Rangers. So the Rangers just firing on all cylinders throughout this game offensively. The power play was absolutely humming. And just great to see something that was such a strength for the Rangers last season continue to be such a strength for the Rangers this season as well. So I want to go ahead and talk about a ridiculous second period for the New York Rangers. They gave up the lead, and they were up 2-0. The Ducks came back and tied it 2-2, but the Rangers were on top 5-2 by the time that the second period ran out, and we're going to break down everything that happened there in just a second. Okay, so this second period, as I mentioned, the Ducks tied the game at 2-2, rallied a little bit, but the Rangers end up scoring 3 unanswered goals to close out the second period. All this happened in the last 10 or 11 minutes of the second period. And I actually want to correct myself on something I said earlier. After the first goal, I mentioned that the Rangers had a game-long lead. Obviously, that was not the case. But after this goal was scored, they were on top for good. You get a little bit of a dirty goal for Kaapo Kakko, which is really nice to see. He crashed the net, and Mika Zibanejad threw it at the net from, along the boards, kind of a tough angle there. But I like the fact that the Rangers are shooting first. They were talking about that on the broadcast. A little bit more of a shoot-first mentality this season. Still a lot of great passing as well, but there were just times in previous seasons, you guys know the drill, the Rangers a lot of times won too many passes and just being selfless to a fault. But in this case, you've got Mika Zibanejad, throwing it at the net, and Kaapo Kakko eventually credited with the goal. He deflected the shot into the twine and made it 3-2 Rangers. A lot of conjecture about whose goal this was going to be. Originally, they thought that, it deflected off of the goalie and then off of Kakko's skate and into the net, and that it would be his goal. Then they thought that, it was stopped by the goalie and then went off the skate of the Anaheim defenseman and then went into the net. And then finally, somebody, got a replay where you could see that Kakko deflected a shot by Mika Zibanejad. So Kakko doing his best Chris Kreider impersonation there, crashing the net, setting up shop, and deflecting the puck into the net. And what a start to this season for Kaapo Kakko, really benefiting from playing with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, playing with a ton of confidence. You can just see it in his body language. Even when the play's not happening, it's, between plays, between the whistles, and, you can just see it in his face. You can see it in his body language. A very confident player, somebody that's learning how to use his size and strength to his advantage. We saw flashes of that this past season. The moment that really comes to mind is the goal that was overturned in Game 1 against the Penguins, where he drove to the net and, he's on his stomach and he's passing to Filipino and setting him up for what should have been the game-winning goal in that game. But not to go on too much of a tangent, but Kaapo Kakko just really figuring out who he is as an NHL player, and I was really happy that he got this goal here. Great deflection, puts it in. And then, I talked not too long ago about the power play for the New York Rangers, and I mentioned that they went 3 for 4. There was one where they did not score, but they scored almost immediately after that. So a lot happened on this play. You've got Sammy Blais, who I thought had a really nice debut. I'm hoping to have some time to talk about him here today, but if we don't, we'll save that for the next episode because Blais deserves a couple of minutes here after his performance. I thought for somebody that hadn't played hockey or regular season hockey in nearly a calendar year, he did a heck of a job here, so we're going to give him his due eventually. But he drew a hooking penalty. He basically received a pass from Vesey from behind the net, and that was actually set up by Filipino. It on the forecheck, hits his guy, knocks him off the puck. Jimmy Vesey then gets the loose puck, passes in front to Blais. Blais tried to score, got hooked down, so the Rangers are back on the power play as a result of this. But, just scoring opportunities left and right. Panarin to Fox to Mika. Mika blasted a one-timer. It was stopped by Gibson, but Gibson was doubled over because he took it right in the breadbasket. Mika Zibanejad slap shot there. And, just chances left and right. They don't end up scoring on this one. With 32 seconds left, the Rangers' second power play unit got an opportunity, and they did not score. The power play ended, but not too long after this, you've got a pass in deep to Hedl. Hedl's along the goal line. Hedl originally was the one that carried the puck over the blue line, and it went to Trouba. It went to Kakko, and then Kakko got some help from Trouba. Trouba passed in deep to Filipino. Hedl then passes kind of diagonally across the crease to Alexis Lafreniere. Lafreniere tips it into the net. And just like that, the Rangers up 4-2, get a little bit of breathing room. So that was awesome to see. So even on the power play where the Rangers do not score, the power play unit remained on the ice, and they scored not too long after that. And then, late in the second period, just 34 seconds left to play, and Panarin, with just an absolute missile up the center of the ice, just winds back and blasts it and gives the Rangers a 5-2 lead and even more breathing room heading into the third period. Basically what happened on this play, the Ducks are down by 2 goals, probably trying to force something. They tried a long pass. It's broken up on a nice play by Ryan Lindgren. Lindgren to Fox. Fox leads Panarin with a nice pass into the attacking zone, and Panarin took care of the rest, just winding back and absolutely tattooing it. And speaking of Artemi Panarin, we need to continue to heap praise onto the bread man here because he is just off to a phenomenal start to the season. He's got 2 goals and 8 assists in just 4 games. Now, I'm no math expert, but that's 2.5 points per game, an unsustainable rate to be sure, but he leads the NHL in points, and I realize, we're at the point in the season where, a lot of teams have played a different amount of games from other teams and, et cetera, but nevertheless, still very impressive to be leading the NHL in points. But beyond the stats and beyond the numbers and beyond the 8 assists that he has and the 2 goals, Panarin just looks like a constant threat every time he's on the ice. He looks like the bread man of old. He struggled in the playoffs a little bit last season. I hope that this is the version of Artemi Panarin that we get in the postseason this year. I think we very easily could. And it's funny, I touched on this briefly in a recent episode. You know, Artemi Panarin, you don't think of him as like a warrior along the boards and, sticking his nose in there and winning board battles, but he has his own very unique way of winning board battles. His ability to just stop on a dime and go back and change directions, he can shake guys off of him that way. And yeah, he's not engaged in like a physical board battle, but he's still winning board battles because his ability to, just hit the brakes and turn on a dime, it basically allows him to win board battles because the guy trying to defend him can't even lay a finger on him. I can't tell you how many times. We're only 4 games into the season, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen Panarin just kind of, again, just stop and head back in the other direction, and the defender is basically just left flailing. They can't keep up with him. They can't handle the moves. And Panarin, a lot of times when he's doing this, somebody will come open for the Rangers, somewhere across the ice, and he'll find them with a great pass. So his ability to do that has really keyed a lot of his success this season. And, hey, it's Artemi Panarin, so he's going to make things happen regardless. But, yeah, I mean, what else can you say? He's just been phenomenal. And something else that really stands out about Panarin, I do think that his line, and he's mostly played with Trocheck and Lafreniere to start the year, I think that's been the Rangers' best line. And I don't say that lightly because I know that Kakko and Mika and Kreider, they're firing on all cylinders. I thought the third line had a really nice night tonight. Obviously they didn't put up as many points, but I thought Hedl, Blais, and Vesey really kind of clicked together in this game and looked pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, up and down the lineup, just contributions all the way around. But I do think that Panarin line has been the best for the Rangers thus far. And, Vincent Trocheck joining a team that went to the Eastern Conference Final, no better way to make somebody feel comfortable than by setting him up for a bunch of goals and being in lockstep with him like I think Artemi Panarin has been so far this season. Something else that I want to talk about here, we got to give some love to Ryan Strome and Frank Vatrano. They both make their returns to Madison Square Garden after signing with the Ducks as free agents this offseason. Ryan Strome got a nice tribute video. Apparently, they didn't show this on the broadcast. Vatrano just got like a still image and a thank you, Frank Vatrano kind of a thing. So he doesn't get the elaborate treatment, but he was only here for half a season, so you can understand. It was nice that they did that either way. But yeah, Strome got the full highlight video, some of his better goals as a New York Ranger. Very, very nice to see. Strome also got a really nice hand for the Madison Square Garden crowd. His former teammates were tapping their sticks, and all the best to those guys. I honestly, like, if I was going to pick, like, a Western Conference team to kind of pull for this season, I could root for the Ducks. They've got 2 former Rangers, 3 if you count Kevin Shattenkirk. They've got some young, exciting players, so, why not? And, Strome and Vatrano, something else that I thought was very interesting in this game, both of them wearing the A's, for alternate captains, and both of them starting this game. My understanding is that they were playing on different lines to start the season, but they were both on the second line together in this one. And, man, I was just waiting for big nights for both of them. We mostly dodged it. Vatrano had the 1 power play goal, but for the most part, they were mostly held in check. So, and, Vatrano, one other thing that I got to mention here, and I touched on this a little bit earlier in today's episode, but going into this season, I figured that they might miss his shoot-first mentality, and they still very well might. But like I said, I think as a team, the Rangers are getting more of that shoot-first mentality. We saw that in this game tonight, and we've seen it thus far this season. And it's translating to a bunch of goals for the New York Rangers, which was really nice to see as well. And I do want to spend a little bit of time here talking about Sammy Blais and his return to the lineup. I was hoping we would have time for this, and indeed we do. He stood out a little bit more to me in the first half of the game than the second half of the game, but overall I thought this was a very positive first game back for Sammy Blais. He, like I said, has not played in a hockey game in a calendar year, not counting the preseason this year, of course. So it's nice to see him get back in there. His first shift, he had some really strong work along the boards. Later in the same shift, he was in on the forecheck, absolutely drilled his guy, big hit into the boards there. Both of them, I believe, fell to the ice on the play. But Sammy the Bull is back in full force not too long after this. I believe the same shift, he ripped a really hard shot. It sounded like it might have caught a piece of the post. The announcers did not mention that, but I thought it might have, drew some iron. I thought I heard the post. He also found his own rebound on this play. Couldn't quite stuff it in. But, man, Sammy Blais out there with a vengeance, looking like somebody who wants to make an impact in his first game back. and remain in the lineup, possibly remain in a top 9 role. We shall see there. He also took a hit, and I held my breath on this because Blais took a hit and kind of hobbled his way back to the bench, but I don't think he even missed a shift, so there was nothing to worry about there, fortunately for the Rangers and for Sammy Blais himself. There was also a play, a little bit later in this game where he was behind the net, carried the puck in front, just kind of turned, ripped it. Gibson made the save, but Sammy Blais, really asserting himself here. And then, of course, there was the play that I already talked about where Sammy Blais drew a penalty. So overall, I think you got to like this return to the lineup for Sammy Blais. I do want to look at his numbers real quick here and share them with you guys. Let's see. Blais, 13 minutes and 34 seconds of ice time. He ended up with 3 shots on goal and 3 hits and was an even plus-minus. So nothing jumping off the page as far as the stats are concerned. But again, for somebody playing in his first game in nearly a year, I think you got to feel pretty good about what you got from Sammy Blais. Something else I want to talk about here was Zach Jones. He was back in the lineup. And, he's kind of entrenched in that battle for the 6th defenseman spot with Libor Hajek. I was fine with Libor Hajek getting a game in the Rangers' last game, but I do want them to roll with Zach Jones going forward. But I do have to say, there were a couple of plays in this game, a couple of hiccups for Zach Jones. There were only really 2, but I do feel like I should point them out here as we continue to, monitor this battle for playing time that may or may not be happening for Zach Jones and Libor Hajek. I'm not sure if Gallant sees this as being a fluid situation or if Zach Jones is his guy going forward. But there was an icing that Zach Jones took in the first period, which was just completely unnecessary. He had the puck behind the Ranger net, and it was a situation where the Ducks weren't really pressuring him. You see that every so often where, a defenseman has the puck behind the net and they're, either waiting for their guys to go off on a line change or they're waiting for something to develop or whatever it might be. But in this case, Jones, he's got the puck, he moves to his left, and he tries to throw it around the boards, and it just goes all the way down the ice for an icing. Not the end of the world, but also not an ideal play there by Zach Jones. And the other play that kind of stood out to me is, and again, it didn't lead to anything for the Ducks, but, Jones is carrying the puck out of his own zone. Fairly easy pass to his right, a fairly short pass to his right to Braden Schneider, and he just missed him, and the Ducks took control of the puck. And again, nothing that I just mentioned is the end of the world, but those 2 plays did stand out to me watching this game. I do think there are better days ahead for Zach Jones. It's one of those things where, he is still very young. He is still very inexperienced in the NHL. There's going to be some growing pains from time to time. But as I've mentioned in the past, I think Zach Jones and Braden Schneider, if given the opportunity, which you have to think they will be given the opportunity, both those guys will be far better players at the end of the season and going into the playoffs than they are right now. And Braden Schneider is already a very good defenseman in this league. And as I've mentioned in the past, I do believe he would certainly be a top 4 defenseman on certain teams around the NHL. With the Rangers, he's not. That's just a nice luxury to have because the Ranger top 4 is absolutely stellar. And Braden Schneider coming into his own wall, holding down the 4 on the 3rd pairing there. But yeah, I figured we could pretty much call it there for today. Not a perfect win for the Rangers, but I think there was more to like than dislike. And hey, the Rangers are 3-1 to start the season. And in our last episode, I mentioned how I think the Rangers have played, out of the 9 periods that they had played at that point, I think that they had played well, or at least acceptable, in 8 of the 9. Their level of play in the 8 of the 9 periods was anywhere from solid to absolutely excellent. I think after this game, it's now 11 out of 12. It was not perfect again, but for the most part, I thought the Rangers looked really good in this game here tonight. You gotta love the fact that the offense is firing on all cylinders. The Rangers couldn't score any goals at the start of last season. Igor Shesterkin was bailing them out every single night. So I think, couple of, nits to pick here, but for the most part, a really strong outing for the New York Rangers, and I think there's a lot more positives 4 games into the season than there are negatives. So, like I said, I figured we could pretty much call it there. Once again, thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com, and definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers, and definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steele Rodine and Flip Livingston bring you the fantasy edge and keep you ahead of the competition with daily updates of news, analysis, and advice Monday through Friday, available on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts.